Hello everybody, this is Pitch Skull Black here, and welcome back to the Skulls General Reviews number 67, in which today I'm going to be reviewing the Target novelisation of Doctor Who and the Abominable Snowmen. Back in October of 2017 was the 50th anniversary of the Abominable Snowmen, and of the Great Intelligence, my favourite Doctor Who monster, or villain. I was going to review this Target and the One of the Web of Fear, as well as the Forgotten Son and Night of the Intelligence, but ended up missing the anniversary. The last two of those reviews were then eventually released during the same month, and the scripts for the first two were completed but completely forgotten about. Originally laid out to be essentially a two-part review, with Abominable explaining my love for the Target, and Web being a shorter, less detailed epilogue to the one on Abominable. In today's video and next week's are these reviews brought to life, presented as they were originally meant to be, minus one detail, which was that my Web Target review was going to be my last Target review ever. And yes, this signals the resurrection of Target reviews on my channel. So with all of that being said and done, on to what is actually my 70th book review on the channel, on the Target novelisation of Doctor Who and the Abominable Snowmen. So, for the presentation of this Doctor Who book, we have Doctor Who in sort of gold sort of lettering, as this is a 2010-2011 reprint. Let's have a quick look here, 2011 reprint. So we have Doctor Who and the Abominable Snowmen, Terrance Dicks, introduction by Stephen Baxter, which is actually a really good thing to read, really interesting little introduction. And for the cover itself, we've got this sort of sphere of sort of ice and sort of blue. It sort of reminds me of a satellite view of a storm of planet Earth on planet Earth. From outer space. I think that's what it's meant to be, with the second Doctor's head sort of floating there with a Yeti, which is actually one from the Web of Fear because they didn't have eyes in the Abominable Snowmen, with Victoria and Jamie there, and Chris Archelios' signature right at the bottom down there. Then for the spine we have the sort of Target reprint picture of the second Doctor, Doctor Who and the Abominable Snowmen. Terrance Dicks, BBC, not quite sure how well you guys can see that, as it is really bright, as the video is really bright. Thank you, sunshine. Then we have a quote from the Target, picture of the Yeti there, symbol of Rassilon. Then there we've got the synopsis, bit about the story, and then the barcode, UK 4.99, US 6.99, cover illustration by Chris Archelios. And now for the synopsis. Light flooded into the tunnel, silhouetting the enormous shaggy figure in the cave mouth. With a blood-curdling roar, claws outstretched, it bore down on Jamie. The Doctor has been to Detsen Monastery before, and expects the welcome of a lifetime, but the monastery is a very different place from when the Doctor last came. Fearing an attack at any moment by the legendary Yeti, the monks are prepared to defend themselves and see the Doctor as a threat. The Doctor and his friends join forces with Travers, an English explorer, out to prove the existence of the elusive Abominable Snowmen, but they soon discover that these Yeti are not the timid animals that Travers seeks. They are the unstoppable servants of an alien intelligence. This novel is based on a Doctor Who story which was originally broadcast from the 30th September to the 4th of November 1967, featuring the second Doctor as played by Patrick Troughton and his companions Jamie and Victoria. Then for the interior we have Doctor Who and the Abominable Snowmen, changing face of Doctor Who. Also available from BBC Books, Target reprints from around this time, Daleks, Crusaders, Cybermen, Auton Invasion and Cave Monsters, Doctor and the Abominable Snowmen, based on the BBC television serial The Abominable Snowmen by Mervyn Haseman and Henry Lincoln by arrangement with the BBC, Terrance Dicks, introduction by Stephen Baxter, illustrated by Alan Willow, and then we've got various copyright guff there, and then the contents of this Doctor Who book here. This is a 165 page long Doctor Who target novelisation spread across 12 main chapters, as well as being interspliced with various illustrations throughout the book, as I mentioned are done by Alan Willow. Very nice illustrations indeed. Really nice illustrations. I would have said personally, I think the illustrations in this are just fantastic for what ones there are. It's just fantastic illustrations really. And then for the very back of the book we have a bit about the authors, Doctor Who and the Abominable Snowmen between the lines, Doctor Who advertisements for other Doctor Who target reprints. At the back of the book there, the Daleks, Crusaders, Cybermen, Auton Invasion, Cave Monsters, and advertisements for audiobooks by Audio Go. So with the presentation of this target novelisation out of the way with, what is the general consensus and my own personal thoughts and opinions on this targeted adventure? As for the general consensus of this targeted missing episode, it has an average rating of 3.8 out of 5 on Goodreads, with very positive reviews overall, with many claiming that this is an awesome target novelisation. On this occasion, I personally have to agree. People have always asked me in the past, why do you like target novelisations so much? Why read them when you've got the television stories? There's no point of them, why bother? Etc, etc. I have never really been able to give an answer to this question. I've always just responded with how great they can be. Nothing really more. I knew there was a good reason as to why I liked them, I just couldn't put my finger on it. But with my recent reread on this target back in August 2017, I have been able to place my finger. For me, television Doctor Who will always be there, and I will always like it. But for me, despite being the complete same stories, the targets have enough character and difference to their original counterparts to differentiate themselves from the TV stories. BBC and budgetary limitations for me sometimes squander classic Doctor Who in some respects to an extent, allowing scenes that could have been much more developed and vivid to be truncated for broadcast. To prove what I mean here is the opening scene from The Abominable Snowmen and its target counterpart read by me.
In the shelter of a rocky outcrop, a campfire glimmers fitfully in the night air. Edward Travers, awoken by the cry, sits up quickly.
John?
Noticing his companion's empty sleeping bag, Travers takes his rifle and moves towards the sound.
John, where are you?
Travers staggers back, his face contorted with fear. He backs up a few paces, then turns and stumbles away into the night. An enormous shadow falls across the campsite, and an object is tossed to the ground. Travers' rifle, twisted beyond recognition.
High on the Himalayan mountainside, the little campfire was burning low. Edward Travers shivered and huddled deeper inside his sleeping bag. He was drifting in and out of an uneasy slumber, fantasy and reality merging and blurring in his mind. In his dream he was at the Royal Geographical Society, addressing a scornful and hostile audience. Gentlemen, I assure you, the body of evidence that has accumulated over the years is undeniable. The Abominable Snowman does exist. He heard again the hated voice of his old rival, Professor Walters. If you are as sure as that, my dear Travers, I suggest you go and look for the beast. Once more, Travers heard the scornful laughter that followed. He heard his own voice. Thank you for the suggestion, sir. Perhaps I will. Travers twisted and muttered in his sleep. Scene followed scene in his mind, like a jerky speeded up old film. The desperate struggle to raise money for his expedition, the final half-scornful agreement of a Fleet Street editor to back him, the long journey to India, the endless days of overland travel to reach the slopes of the Himalayas, still more days spent climbing, always climbing, to reach this remote point, and all for nothing. Soon they would have to turn back, The expedition a failure. Back in London there would be polite sympathy, concealing quiet amusement. Only Mackie would stand by him. Mackie, his oldest and best friend, the only man who had agreed to join his expedition. Yet now it seemed that even Mackie had turned against him. Mackie was laughing at him, screaming insults. Suddenly Travers jerked fully awake. He really could hear Mackie's voice. It was calling to him, screaming for help. Travers rubbed his eyes and looked across the circle of light around the campfire. Mackie's sleeping bag was empty. There were tracks leading out into the darkness. Travers fumbled for his rifle and struggled from his sleeping bag. Then he set off towards the sound of Mackie's voice. He scrambled over the edge of the little plateau and down the rocky slope. In the darkness ahead of him, he could see two struggling figures. One was Mackie, but the other, it was enormous. A giant, shaggy form. Travers tried to call out, but only could produce a sort of croak. Instantly the creature flung Mackie to the ground. It whirled around to attack Travers. He raised his rifle, but before he could fire it was wrenched from his hands. Travers caught a brief glimpse of glowing eyes and savage fangs. Then a blow from a giant hairy paw smashed him to the ground. Back at the little campsite, the fire was almost out. The guttering of the flames threw a feeble light on the two empty sleeping bags. The shadow of a huge, shuffling figure fell over the site. Something was tossed contemptuously into the dying fire. It was Mackie's rifle. The barrel was all bent almost double. The stock shattered into matchwood. The giant shape moved away and vanished into the night. For me, Target books will always have this quality to it, and help me to enjoy them as their own range of books a lot. I urge any fan of Doctor Who books to read a Target at least once to try and see what I mean. The characters, characterization and character chemistry is awesome within this Target, with very well done portrayals of the TARDIS team, Travers and the fellow monks. A particular highlight for me when it comes to this is Padmasambhava, who here is depicted as a swallowed up, dying husk of a figure possessed by the intelligence. Very creepy, menacing and awesome overall. Page 129, quote, "For a moment there was silence. Then suddenly the body of Padmasambhava jerked and twisted. It sat bolt upright on the throne with new vigour. The eyes that glared after the Doctor were ablaze with malevolence. The great intelligence was back in control." This is an overall epic and thrilling Target novelisation that once peaked as my favourite Doctor Who book of all time. If I had any reservations or problems with this book overall, I would say it's not quite as atmospheric as its original TV counterpart. Nonetheless, this is an embodiment of why I love the Target novelisation so much, an almost complete and utter triumph.